Eleven's fate. The season finale leaves Eleven's survival deeply ambiguous. She appears to die when the Upside Down explodes at the climax of Season 5's finale, but the truth remains unclear. Military forces deployed sonic speakers that jammed Eleven's psychic powers, preventing her from using telekinesis to escape. These devices emitted high-frequency waves designed specifically to suppress psychic abilities, rendering Elle helpless at the most critical moment. Mike theorizes that Callie created a psychic illusion of Eleven's death, allowing her to flee undetected. In Mike's mage story, told during the Dungeons & Dragons epilogue, he claims Eleven actually survived and escaped to Iceland, establishing a new life far removed from government threats. However, Callie was bleeding heavily on the floor, yet supposedly had enough strength to create this elaborate illusion. The logistics of this theory raise questions about how severely injured Callie actually was, and whether she could maintain such a complex psychic projection while dying. According to Matt Duffer, Eleven would not have had enough time to reach the gate if she could use her powers. No nosebleed occurs when Eleven speaks to Mike telepathically, suggesting either the illusion theory holds weight or that she was at the threshold between life and death. The series creators intentionally left the ending ambiguous to let audiences decide. This represents the season's biggest unresolved mystery, deliberately creating contradictions that make both interpretations seem valid. Either Eleven made the ultimate sacrifice, or she successfully escaped a life of government persecution. Max's vision. Max was brutally blinded by Vecna in Season 4's finale, but in Season 5 she appears to see perfectly, despite no clear explanation for the recovery. In Season 4, Vecna explicitly damaged Max's eyes during his attack, leaving her unable to see. Max's final words in Season 4 were, "I can't see or feel anything," before she dies. The blindness appeared to be permanent damage inflicted through Vecna's supernatural powers, a consequence that seemed irreversible. Eleven resurrects Max using a mysterious new power never used again in the series. This resurrection ability created more questions than answers about the extent of Eleven's abilities and the true nature of her powers. A 2-year time gap exists between Seasons 4 and 5, during which Max remains in a coma. In Season 5, Volume 1, Max is referenced as still blind, but in Volume 2 she mysteriously regains her sight. The transition between volumes occurs without any explanation or magical moment showing how her vision returns. Fan theories suggest Eleven's resurrection power restored her sight, natural healing occurred during the coma, or the blindness was a temporary psychosomatic effect. The show never explicitly addresses whether Max wakes up blind or sighted. This represents a notable continuity gap where Vecna's attack was portrayed as permanently damaging, yet the show abandons this consequence without explanation. Missing Demogorgons. Throughout 5 seasons, Demogorgons served as Vecna's primary army and defenders, yet not a single creature appears in the final battle against him. Demogorgons were central threats since Season 1's first episode, and remained dangerous throughout the series. In Season 5, Volume 1, Demogorgons actively defend Vecna and attack the party in multiple scenes. These creatures demonstrate the power and reach Vecna commands, making their absence in the finale even more puzzling. Season 5 finale takes place in the Abyss, where Demodogs naturally inhabit, and all battle occurs on Vecna's home turf, where creatures should be abundant. The environmental advantage should have been overwhelming, with countless creatures at Vecna's disposal throughout his domain. The Duffer brothers explain that Vecna didn't expect the sneak attack, so creatures weren't present during the assault. Some fans criticize this explanation, noting that Vecna previously commanded Demodogs to protect Will in earlier seasons. The creators also cited demo fatigue as a reason, claiming all Demogorgon storylines were completed in an earlier episode. This absence changes the tone of the final battle significantly. The introduction of the giant Mind Flayer creature was meant to be terrifying, but the lack of supporting forces makes the confrontation feel oddly contained. Briefcase Stone. Young Henry discovers a mysterious glowing stone in a briefcase deep in a Nevada cave, but the show never explains where it came from or who the man carrying it was. In Season 5, Henry relives the memory of finding a red and black pulsing stone inside the briefcase. The stone contains particles from Dimension X, specifically fragments of the Mind Flayer itself. These fragments represent a direct connection between the supernatural forces and ordinary human reality, a bridge between worlds. Young Henry picks up the stone, and black particles seep into his hand, possessing him immediately. The possession happens instantaneously, suggesting the Mind Flayer particles were specifically designed to bond with human consciousness. The stone's particles grant Henry his psychic powers and begin his transformation into Vecna. The show never explains who owned the briefcase, how it got there, or where the scientist came from. The man in the cave was seemingly from a government facility, with Lincoln County, Nevada base mentioned in connection. This government connection implies they discovered something extraordinary in the desert decades before the events of the series. No backstory is provided for the Briefcase's journey or significance. The Duffer brothers confirmed this origin will be explained in an upcoming Stranger Things spin-off, but this leaves Season 5 viewers without satisfying closure about the complete origin of Vecna's powers. Government consequences. The main characters openly killed American military soldiers, stole government property, and infiltrated classified military facilities, yet faced zero legal repercussions in the finale. Hopper directly shot multiple American military soldiers in combat sequences throughout the season. These weren't accidental deaths or acts of self-defense. They were deliberate actions against federal personnel. The main characters created chaos in federal facilities, according to the show's own description. The military was antagonistic throughout Season 5. Actively hunting the party with significant resources. Their pursuit was relentless, funded by federal budgets and coordinated across multiple agencies. Dr. K's base was destroyed, her experiments disrupted, and her forces defeated. In the finale, the entire military presence simply vanishes from Hawkins without explanation. No military officers return for follow-up investigations or interrogations of the surviving characters. No explanation is given for why characters escaped prosecution for these serious crimes. No trial, investigation, or government follow-up is shown in any capacity. Reddit users pointed out that the most unrealistic thing in the entire show is that the military would just let them all go free. This represents a tonal shift from previous seasons, where government involvement carried genuine threat and consequence. Water tank. The Upside Down has been consistently shown as completely waterless throughout the entire series. Yet a water-filled tank suddenly appears in the Upside Down during the final confrontation. Season 1 showed Barb's pool in the Upside Down completely dry, establishing that no water exists there. This was a pivotal visual establishing the world's unique characteristics and hostile nature. Season 4 depicted Lover's Lake in the Upside Down as empty, despite having water in the real world. Season 4 also showed Steve jumping through Watergate expecting water, but the Upside Down version had none. The lack of water became a running element of the show's world building, emphasizing how the mirrored dimension is fundamentally different. The established rule was that the Upside Down is frozen in time from November 6th, 1983, and mirrors reality but lacks water entirely. Season 5 finale shows Eleven using a water-filled sensory deprivation tank at Hawkins' lab in the Upside Down. This tank is the exact type of equipment used in the original show's opening, but its presence in the UD contradicts everything established. The tank contains actual water, despite the world-building rule that no water exists in this dimension. The party never discusses bringing water or addresses this obvious contradiction. No one questions how a water tank appeared in a dimension that has been established as completely dry. This is a direct contradiction of established world-building rules that the show went out of its way in previous seasons to emphasize. By the way, if you're enjoying this breakdown of Stranger Things Season 5's biggest mysteries, please subscribe for more deep dives into unresolved plot points and alternate theories from your favorite shows. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss any future breakdowns. Will's Hivemind. Will's connection to the Hivemind caused him excruciating pain when tentacles were burned in Season 2, but in Season 5 he controls the Hivemind with seemingly no similar physical suffering. Season 2 showed that when soldiers burned tentacle vines connected to Will, he collapsed in extreme pain and convulsions. The agony was immediate and overwhelming, demonstrating a direct physical link between Will and the Hivemind creatures. Will was physically and psychologically devastated by his Hivemind connection during that season. Season 5 shows Will tapping into the Hivemind deliberately and experiencing connection to the creatures. He demonstrates control and intention, rather than the terrified passivity shown in earlier seasons. Will's powers are shown as controllable in Season 5, a significant change from earlier portrayals where he was a passive conduit. In the finale, the Mind Flayer and Vecna are killed while Will is still connected to them. The fact that he survives this event suggests either his connection was weaker than expected, or he truly had immunity to the pain. This creates an inconsistency in Hivemind mechanics between seasons. The question remains whether Will developed resistance to the pain, or if the nature of the connection fundamentally changed over time. Vecna's vague plan. Vecna's motivation for kidnapping 12 children represents one of Season 5's biggest plot holes. In Episode 4, Vecna reveals he needs 12 kids as perfect vessels to reshape the world because they are weak in body and mind, easily broken and controlled. However, the show never explains what reshaping the world actually means. Matt Duffer told Variety that, when asked what Vecna's plan accomplishes, the real question is simply, what does that mean? This admission highlights that even the creators haven't provided a concrete answer. Multiple contradictory theories exist but are never reconciled. One suggests the 12 children serve as anchor points to merge the abyss and Earth into one dimension. Another claims the number 12 ties to Vecna's clock obsession from Season 4, suggesting he plans to reset time itself based on the 12 hours on a clock. A third theory proposes Vecna needs the children to amplify his abilities so he can draw the worlds together. Will explains in episode 7 that Vecna channels his powers through people to amplify his abilities, with plans to do the same with the 12 children. Yet another theory suggests Vecna intends to use the awakened children as an army to defeat the Mind Flayer or take control from it. Season 5 never clarifies which theory is correct, leaving audiences confused about his actual endgame. Most problematically, the show establishes that Vecna will use the children to remake reality into something spectacular, yet in Volume 2, Vecna accomplishes virtually nothing and is defeated without explaining what his scheme would have achieved. The children are freed before any transformation occurs, the plan fails completely, and the show never resolves what would have happened if Vecna had succeeded. This represents a fundamental plot hole, where the central villain's entire motivation remains deliberately ambiguous and unsatisfying. Pregnant women. Callie discovers a lab full of pregnant women being infused with her blood to create superpowered children, but the show abandons this plot thread without explaining what happened to them. During her escape from Dr. K's facility, Callie discovers a hidden room with pregnant women hooked to IV lines containing Callie's blood. The discovery is shocking and reveals the scope of the government's ambitions. The women are part of Dr. K's attempt to revive Dr. Brenner's original program of creating psychic children. The women's fate is completely absent from the narrative presented to viewers. No follow-up occurs in any subsequent episode or scene regarding these women's survival or the success of the experiment. The plot raises a critical moral question about whether a new generation of powered children would exist if the blood infusion succeeded. This would undermine Eleven's entire sacrifice to prevent more experimentation on children like her. No resolution is shown in the finale about the fate of these women and potential children. The lab was located in the Upside Down, raising questions about whether the wormhole explosion killed the women or if some might have survived the destruction. The moral ambiguity of this unresolved thread is disturbing and suggests a major storytelling oversight. Protective gear. In Season 1, hazmat suits were mandatory protection against the toxic upside-down atmosphere, but by Season 5, characters casually walk around in regular clothes with no safety precautions. Season 1 showed all scientists wearing full hazmat suits when entering the Upside Down as protection against the toxic, spore-filled atmosphere. The suits were bulky and cumbersome, emphasizing the dangerous nature of the alternate dimension. Will became extremely ill from upside-down air exposure during Season 1, and Joyce and Hopper wore protective gear when rescuing him. The illness was severe enough to nearly kill him, establishing the atmosphere as genuinely hazardous. Season 4 showed multiple characters including Dustin, Eddie, Nancy, Robin, and Steve entering the Upside Down without any masks or suits. These characters survived without any indication of illness or discomfort. Season 5 continues this casual approach with characters roaming the Upside Down in regular clothes. No explanation is given for why the toxicity threat disappeared between seasons. The show never addresses whether the atmosphere changed or if humans somehow developed immunity. The rules are simply abandoned without in-universe justification, creating a world-building inconsistency about the Upside Down's environmental hazards. Henry's choice. The Broadway play The First Shadow establishes Henry as a victim of the Mind Flayer's possession, yet Season 5 finale shows him apparently choosing evil, creating a fundamental contradiction about his agency. The First Shadow play depicts Henry as a frightened child struggling against the Mind Flayer's influence. The audience witnesses his internal conflict and his desire to resist the darkness consuming him. Henry befriends Patty Newby, who convinces him he isn't inherently evil and can use his powers for good and to create beauty. Patty represents his last chance at redemption and humanity in the play's narrative. The play establishes Henry as a victim of possession, not a willing villain. In the Season 5 finale, Will offers Henry some measure of empathy and shows him his childhood. Will attempts to reach Henry through memories of their shared experience with the Hivemind. Henry claims he chose to be evil, in apparent contradiction to the play's portrayal. If Henry was possessed in childhood, as the First Shadow shows, the question arises whether he could truly choose evil in the present. The Duffer brothers didn't reconcile the contradiction between victim and villain interpretations in any meaningful way. This fundamentally undermines Henry's character arc, as the show wants him to be sympathetic, while also holding him fully responsible for his evil choices. Castle Byers. A key flashback scene in Season 5 directly contradicts the established timeline of when Will and Jonathan built Castle Byers. Season 2 episode showed Jonathan describing building Castle Byers the night their father left, recalling that it was pouring rain and they got so drenched they were sick for a week. The memory was presented as a foundational bonding moment between the brothers during a traumatic family event. Jonathan emphasized the emotional weight, saying they just had to finish it despite the terrible conditions. The project became a symbol of their determination and love for each other despite chaos. Season 5 flashback episode Sorcerer shows Castle Byers being built on a sunny, beautiful day, with Will and Jonathan appearing happy and comfortable. The scene is idyllic and peaceful, showing no signs of the desperation from the Season 2 recounting. This contradicts the rain, sickness, and desperation from Season 2's account entirely. The Duffer brothers acknowledged the error in a published interview and considered retconning Will's birthday to match the Season 5 visual, but didn't implement the change. The fact they discussed changing canon, but didn't execute it, leaves the contradiction unresolved. This is a rare instance where the show creators publicly admitted to an error, but chose to leave it uncorrected. If you found this interesting, consider subscribing so you don't miss future uploads. Thanks for watching.